Hey, 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 welcome to the program, folks. This is officially July 14th, Monday. Chris Himes and Keith Junta are with me here. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning.
Happy
I got
Monday.
some I got some stuff to get off my chest. This is actually quite serious. I don't normally say things the way I'm going to say them right now. This is I feel a deadly seriousness in what I want to say right now to anybody who's listening, anybody who wants to hear it. I'm speaking. I don't normally say this. I don't normally say I'm speaking as a Christian. I am always a Christian and I'm always speaking as a Christian, but I'm rarely speaking officially as a Christian where I would reference it explicitly. But I do that because there are times um, when you see the only possible way forward is with God. We can fool ourselves oftentimes into thinking that there are answers that are secular answers that are somehow apart from God. Uh, of course, anything that's good and true and beautiful ultimately comes from God, whether you acknowledge it or don't. But there's a time when you have to stop faking it and you have to say God is the only answer. Now, we can say that too as a cliche. God is the only answer. Love is the answer, like whatever. No, you have to be more clear. And so today, I want to say a few things. And again, I'm speaking very much publicly as a Christian, as a public Christian, when I say these things. What am I referring to? Forgive me for taking so long to get to the punchline. I'm referring to the division that has revealed itself in what we might call the MAGA movement, or what is called the MAGA movement. We have people who are pro-Trump people attacking viciously other people who are pro-Trump people. And I want to say, and I'm only echoing what Ronald Reagan said, but most people are, probably too young to remember what Ronald Reagan said. But it's simply true, whether he says it or I say it or anyone says it, that you have to have wisdom and you have to understand when not to attack the people on your own team. When you're doing greater damage by attacking the people on your own team, even if you have differences, because you will have differences. Right now, there are great differences in the MAGA movement, in the conservative movement, in the America First movement, in the I Love America movement. There are real differences, and there are people on either side of those differences who are so sure that they're right that they have zero grace for anyone who doesn't heartily agree with them. What am I talking about specifically? Well, two things. Number one, what President Trump said, I guess 2 days ago, in a Truth Social post about Pam Bondi and about the Epstein files. What he said disappointed many of us. That issue of the Epstein files, that's number one, where there are people that would simply agree with Trump and say, look, whatever he's for, I'm for it, and I trust him. And there are other people who are declaring now that Trump has, sold his soul to the devil and to the deep state, and he's in bed with all of our enemies because whatever. So that's one place of disagreement. And I've been dismayed mainly by the viciousness and the despair. And I don't see God in that. So I want to talk about that. But another thing that needs to be mentioned, which is a similar thing, is this Israel stuff. And again, you if you follow the news, you get all this stuff. But the other day, Charlie Kirk at his TPUSA event had many speakers, among them Tucker Carlson. And this is where it gets complicated. And this is where I'm speaking as a Christian, where you have to have grace. I don't know with whom I agree on some of these issues. When somebody like Tucker Carlson is questioning things or whatever, he can be kind of annoying in that way, because some of us see him as giving credence to people who maybe would be described as anti-Semitic. Some people would describe Tucker as being anti-Semitic. So there's this big division. And what I want to say is, what I think the real issue here is a spirit of division. Now, again, I'm speaking as a Christian. Some people don't understand this concept of a spirit of division. That is a demonic principality, which we're talking about, but it doesn't matter. What I mean to say specifically is that in this case, Laura Loomer, who is radically pro-Trump, viciously attacked Charlie Kirk for allowing Tucker Carlson to speak at his event. Now, are we all so dumb that we can't see beyond level one? Okay, level one is maybe we disagree with some stuff Tucker said. Great. Should Charlie have said, I will not allow Tucker Carlson to speak? We're not talking about Minister Farrakhan. We're not talking about David Duke. We're not talking about Milo. We're talking about Tucker Carlson. So we can disagree with Tucker Carlson, but the idea that we wouldn't allow him to speak, I find preposterous. But Laura Loomer is viciously attacking Charlie Kirk, who is a hero, a hero. She's attacking him for what? For effectively being gracious, for saying that maybe if I disagree with Tucker on some stuff, I don't need to have that front and center. I will give him a platform to speak, because I think maybe a debate, a healthy airing of differences could lead to the truth. Laura Loomer, who's a journalist, has very viciously attacked Charlie as a sellout. And I just want to publicly denounce that. I believe that she has given in to what I'm calling a spirit of division, that even if you disagree with Tucker, I think we ought to accord him grace. What's his name? Is it Bill Ackman, the billionaire Jewish philanthropist?
Yeah.
He put out a long post on X, strongly disagreeing with what Tucker said. That's perfectly appropriate, right? In other words, we want to get to the truth of it. If Tucker is saying some things that Bill Ackman is disagreeing with, and again, this gets into the whole, I mean, it ties into the Epstein stuff, right? But what I'm saying is there's a place for healthy debate, but to demonize Tucker for saying these things to the point where you wouldn't allow him on your stage, Charlie didn't do that. Why didn't Charlie do that? I'll tell you why. Because Charlie has wisdom, and because Charlie understands grace. You do not, specifically as a Christian, have to be so black and white that if somebody says stuff you disagree with, you say, that's beyond the pale. I will not allow him to speak at my... Now, I guess there's a point where you do that. But what I'm saying is it was perfectly appropriate for him to allow Tucker to speak. Tucker is not the devil. Tucker is a friend on so many issues. And when we come back, I'll pick this apart. But this is very, very important for America and the world, which is why I'm talking about it. We'll be right back. Folks, welcome back. I'm ranting and raving. And you have to give me grace to do that. I'm speaking today, Eric Metaxas, on the Eric Metaxas Show. I'm speaking about some stuff that's been in the news that if you listen to this show or you listen to me, you know that I almost never ever do this, where I just, Chris Himes, my producer, said, empty the clip.
Empty the clip, man. It's a drive-by. It's a Monday morning drive-by. It's a Monday morning Metaxas drive-by.
But some things need to be said, right? So there's a lot here. Okay. Uh, this ties into, I mean, actually, as I mentioned, what Tucker said at, the other day. I mean, I'm not going to get into it much, but just to briefly let you know. So Tucker gets up there at Charlie's event, and he says some things. Now, I don't know if they're right or wrong. So I'm not siding with Tucker, but I'm siding with Charlie in allowing Tucker to say these things. So what is Tucker saying? Tucker was saying, in effect, that Tucker is not a fan of the Israeli government, not a fan of Netanyahu. Eric Metaxas, do not know whether I agree with him. In other words, he might be right. He might not be right. I am still trying to figure it out. It seems to me that many wise people who love America, who love Donald Trump, are trying to figure these things out. And so Laura Loomer is saying that because of what Tucker has said, he is effectively an anti-Semite and a monster, and Charlie shouldn't have given him a spot. I disagree with that. So part of what Tucker said relates to the Epstein files. He says that it seems that Epstein may well have been an agent working with Mossad, which is the Israel intelligence agency, and with the CIA, blah, 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 blah. That is utterly plausible at this point. And for somebody to ask that question, of course, is legitimate. And if you think that makes them an anti-Semite, I think that's ridiculous. The reason I think it's ridiculous, the reason I'm speaking up is because I wrote a 600-page book on Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I stand with Israel, and I advocate standing with Israel. And in the conversation between Tucker and Ted Cruz, I would be more on the Ted Cruz side. This is not to say that I completely disagree with Tucker. I don't. But we ought to be able to have a healthy debate without giving in to what I've called a spirit of division, where you demonize Tucker for asking the questions, you demonize Tucker for saying what he said. He's trying, it seems to me, to figure this out. And I don't get the impression that he's a hidebound thinker. I think that, again, even if I end up disagreeing with him, I respect his process enough that I would certainly allow him to speak if I were running something like the TPUSA conference from a few days ago. So, but Laura Loomer disagrees with this and has so viciously, I think, attacked Charlie that I get very, I get upset because to me, Charlie is exhibiting what I call grace, and it's Christian grace and it's wisdom. It's to say that we're a big tent, and I'm not going to agree with everybody who comes onto my stage, but we are a big tent. We're part of a bigger movement because we are in a war. And in a war, you work with people sometimes with whom you disagree. I should point out to Laura Loomer that this country, in defeating the Nazis who murdered millions of Jews, we worked with Joseph Stalin and the satanic Soviet Union of Stalin. We did it because we believed that we had to make an ugly compromise to defeat the satanic Nazis who really hated Jews. Sometimes we have to do that. Charlie Kirk at his conference also had on, what's her name? Jillian Michaels, right? Jillian Michaels is openly a lesbian. I know that Charlie and I don't think that pursuing a gay lifestyle is God's will, but this doesn't mean we cannot have friends with whom we disagree on that issue. So the question is, at what point do you say, that's it, I'm not going to talk to these people, I'm not going to, this is an important question. And so it requires real wisdom. And I'm speaking on this now, kind of putting myself out there because I think this is very important. And I think the nation's at stake. I think that if you become swept up in attacking everyone with whom you disagree, to this point, you do damage, you do greater damage. And I think that, there are limits to the big tent philosophy. We'll say that there are limits to it. At the same time, you cannot be, if you're all about purity and never working with anyone with whom you disagree, nothing gets done. I can bring up William Wilberforce. You want to read a great book on William Wilberforce? I happen to write one. It's called Amazing Grace. William Wilberforce and the Heroic Campaign to End Slavery. William Wilberforce, 230 years ago, worked with people with whom he disagreed on many issues for the greater cause of ending the satanic slave trade. Just as America worked with Joseph Stalin to destroy the Nazis. This is complicated, folks. In our own history, in our own founding, many people like John Adams and Ben Franklin, who despised slavery, were forced to work with people in slave states to ratify a constitution so that we could have a nation. This doesn't mean they thought slavery was okay. That's politics, and that's the world of reality. In the end, they were proved right because slavery was abolished in America, and America exists today. So this is kind of basic stuff, but at the same time, I think it's very easy. If you love truth, as every serious person should, especially every serious Christian, if you really love truth, you have to beware of being led by your love of truth to lack grace. I think that this attack, we can be gracious. I don't agree with everything Laura Loomer says, but I don't attack her because I think she's a force for good. Just like so many people out there, and I would include Tucker among them, he's a force for good. So when I disagree with him or I wonder, why is he saying that? This doesn't mean that I can't talk about what I disagree with. This doesn't mean that I can't question him, but to attack him viciously. Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you, this morning, Laura Loomer on X posted that Tucker Carlson was not attacked by a demon in his sleep. He was possessed by a demon. That was her tweet, And I want to say, okay, I'm pretty sure Laura Loomer doesn't even believe in demons. I don't know what her theology is, but this is how vicious we're now getting. And I just think, why are we going to that level? It's just not right. It's just not right. Now, here's the other side of it. Okay. Chip and Joanna Gaines.
Oh boy.
Maybe Keith, maybe you can sum that up.
Oh boy. Well, Chip and Joanna are beloved. They're television heroes, HGTV, Fixer Upper. They got so big, they launched their own network called Magnolia. And they have, over the years, they have leaked. They've dropped some breadcrumbs that they are affirming. We'll use that term to the LGBTQ movement, just by some of the guests and some of their handling of things. Well, now they're coming out with a new show on their network, so they're not being forced by HGTV. This is their control. It's called Back to the Frontier. It's set in the 1800s, and they are going to do like a reality thing where they put a couple, a family, out on the farm with only the things they would have had in the 1800s, and we watch them try to survive. So one of their stars, one of their focuses will be a gay couple, two men who are raising two boys. And by the way, I poured through the annals of American history, and I marveled at the bravery of our gay historic American homesteaders who raised their purchased surrogate children on the prairie. But what's happening is because they've put this out, and then everybody began to question and attack. Megan Basham has been right on point with her tone and her facts. And Chip, unfortunately, has completely fumbled this thing, and he's defending in ways that now it's just completely blown up.
Look, and I think, but the reason this is related to what we're talking about is you say, okay, here we have an issue of disagreement, and
right.
I think it is appropriate to to call out Chip and Joanna Gaines and say, listen, this is wrong. And we're not going to watch your show. And we're going to tell everyone we know not to watch your show. What you're doing is wrong.
Right. And you know what? It comes back to the children again, because Chip is saying all this hatred against gay people. It's like, well, hold on, Chip. You've got children involved here. So would you want your children to watch dad and dad walk out of the bedroom every morning? There's a level of not just abnormalcy. This is trauma for these kids that were denied the benefit of having a mother. They're growing up with these two men, and there are children at stake here, and they're going to now televise this and make it look normal. And Chip has just been so off, surprisingly off the mark. And my closing line was that you go woke, you go broke back to the frontier.
And that is true. And so there's a time to denounce stuff. There's a time to denounce stuff strongly. But I think how we do it, this is where I was going to say why at the beginning of all this, I said, I'm speaking as a Christian. We have to have the discernment. What does it mean to say things in love? What does it mean to be loving? What does that mean? Sometimes it means we give grace to things we don't agree with. We give a platform to Jillian Michaels, an open lesbian. We give a platform to Tucker Carlson saying things that would, because it's a little complicated. You don't only have people on you agree with on everything, but
right
it's part of a larger war. And
right.
you how do I put it? There are times when you do have to say no. And so Chip and Joanna Gaines, that's a classic example. You want to say to them, listen, Chip and Joanna, I get the idea of loving my gay and lesbian neighbors, but what does that mean? Does giving them a platform on a big show like that, is that good? It's not good. And we need to say that it's not good. And we even say that lovingly. We say it strongly, but we say it lovingly.